welcome back to the show. I'm Isaiah, and that's George. If you're new around here, please subscribe if you like our videos, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss an upload. And also, if you like this video, please leave a like. If you didn't know, that's how YouTube works. If you like a video,
Welcome,
there's a thumbs up. So, yeah,
welcome to the planet. If you didn't know, right?
welcome
Welcome
to the
to
planet.
yeah.
I,
Well,
I
it's
mean, I
like
don't think any infants are watching Rupert and Pinchy show.
yeah, that's true. Well, it used to be, it still is for me somewhat. I mean, us older folks with all the new technology, it's like, grandson, why don't you come over here and tell me how to turn on my stupid phone? It is on. It's on, Grandpa,
It's
and
a
it's listening to you
smartphone,
right
not a
now.
stupid phone.
It's a stupid phone. Yeah, that's where you start correcting. But um, that uh, the older generation, we tend to think that we are up on things, but sometimes we are not, right? But but we are all have been inundated with and familiarized with technology. So yeah, so uh
That's good to
communication
know.
or yeah, communication or YouTube or watching movies or watching funny short videos or whatever is so so what do you call it, draws people in. It's so attractive and so it's really not surprising to go like to the store or whatever, and there's two people that look like they're 105, and they're one is holding their phone and they're showing the other one and they're laughing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're watching a funny YouTube video. Of
Yeah. Well, yeah.
course, I don't go to look and see if what they're watching. It might be that they're laughing because they don't know how to turn it on, but in any case, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting the availability of entertainment for the modern culture compared to even the last 100 years before this technology became so widespread. It it's over the like the span of the 1900s. That's when radio was being introduced, and then television, and very, very slowly over time. And then I feel like nowadays it's even more rapid. Um, or the last 20 years, it's been a very rapid um, succession of phones, TVs, and flat screens and stuff like that. It's just grown insane amount. And even with the older generation, they kind of have to figure out how to use this technology, um, right? And so there's a certain survival instinct that leads us to build habits or build understanding about things that we have no experience of. So I think some of that is just a natural consequence of it, right?
Yeah. Well, there's some older clips and some uh, uh, of funny movies or TV shows, or there's clips of some amazing sermons or lectures, or that when you're so glad you're amazed that you get to watch this, lecture, like for example from Alexander Solzhenitsyn when I don't know if it was at Harvard or Yale, but he gave a speech. If even back then when the world was a little bit more normal and academia was a little bit more normal, they still weren't normal. Uh, if they had known what he was going to say, there's no way they would have wanted him to come. But he was famous, and so and the talk of the town and the world, and so but he gave a great speech. So all those things, it's so wonderful to have at our fingertips. Or Mayberry RFD, watching Barney, you know, and uh,
For
so
for
it's a
the for the young generation, that's a
TV show,
old show. Yeah, he's
old
not he's
sitcom.
not watching Barney the dinosaur. He's watching
Yeah,
just to
yeah,
clarify.
Yeah, and some old shows are amazing, like some new shows are amazing. Uh, it's really the writers. If the writers and the actors are in like a certain nirvana point, you got the right actors, you got the good writers. It's gold. But anyway, but what's nice now is uh, it's not like it's a production that's a play that's being done that only the wealthy or the people that are or live in that area where it's being uh, produced and broadcast. They're not the only ones anymore that uh, can get the benefit of that.
Right.
Everybody can. It's kind of like the meat. It's meat. I don't know why I always go to meat because meat. I'm a carnivore. Um,
I'm an
I'm a
herbivore. No, I'm not.
I'm a I'm a I'm a carnivore by nature and by desire.
I'm an
And
omnivore because I'm a human,
yeah.
and humans are
Uh
omnivores. But
I'll tolerate vegetable. But no, I don't tolerate vegetable. In fact, I like vegetable. But anyway, my point being that it's a little bit like um the abundant food we have. Um and it's not just you and your dad and your mom and Caleb that get to have a wonderful ribeye steak. I get to have one too, even though I live 100 miles from you, and the person that lives 1,000 miles from you, or the person that lives in Antarctica and is stationed there at a military or a scientific research base, and it's flown into them. You know what I mean? And so, entertainment or whatever is so the distribution. It's ubiquitous in all the facets of our life, right? So
yeah, well,
anyway,
that's with a lot of things in the modern world, and we talked about this in a podcast. I don't know if it was two podcasts ago, but about the prosperity that we have, and it really is um it is really true. There's such a
hmm
marked difference between what we have, what is available to us now versus what was available to people back then. Like, let me give an example. After the fire of Alexandria in the really far distant past, um, it was a big deal. A lot of the records were gone, and things that could not be replicated, um, were all gone. But nowadays, there's so much information that we have that
we have it
it's
backed up.
it would be really hard to get rid of that information. There's so many books that have been reproduced over and over and over again, and have digital copies even, that we have today, that back then it was really hard to get your hands on the records of the past, because there was only one copy, or there was only one transcript of it. And
Mhm.
so that's just amazing in their eyes. Like, to be able to have all that information all in one place on a drive or something like that. And it's something that makes sense when we consider human ingenuity. So I don't think that modern
Yeah,
science
go
would
ahead.
look like magic to the people of the past. I really don't think that's true. I think that
Yeah,
they have more of an affinity. Is that the right term? Uh,
they would see the natural progression as they would see it. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
right. And so I don't think that modern science would look like magic. But the point is to say that because of the amount of information that we have nowadays, it's just it's such a marked difference, and we should really be glad and grateful that we live in a society that has held to Western morality, because I don't know if the same fruits of that society would be visible if not for Christianity and Western society as a whole. And so we are very privileged and we should be very grateful for it. And that's something that I kind of going like all over the map right now, but
You're
um,
fine.
people that are complaining about being in America, like who say, if Donald Trump is elected, I'm leaving America. The reason why they never leave is because there's nowhere else to go. I'm sorry, there's nowhere else to go that's as plentiful and free as this country. And so to be ungrateful about it is just it's like how how should we be ungrateful for the greatest abundance of all time at this point? It's
Yeah.
just it's
Well,
crazy how much things have changed.
well, not to give pushback or disagree on one point and then continue on, um, is that there are other places, right, that are pretty cool.
Sure, yeah.
And right, but the reality is it is located on the Earth, right? We're not talking about, hey, it'd be really cool to go live on Mars, where my friends
Well,
are, or where
Elon would
everybody.
say that.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. It's just like, let's go live on Saturn. It's like, okay, so wherever you're going to go, it's going to be on the Earth, so it's not going to be perfect, right?
Right.
There's if there are issues here, it's like ignorance does not say, we're just gonna be located in South America and we're gonna leave the rest of the continents alone. No, all the continents have their ignorance, all the continents have their problems, but there are blessings where we're at, and sometimes it's we might be surprised to find out that there's some people in some pretty dark countries, maybe not the dark countries, but they might feel like, gosh, we're so blessed to be here. They only beat us twice a day instead of four times a day like they used to.
Right.
Uh, but all I'm saying is that yeah, we should be really appreciative of where we're at, and sometimes we forget that. So you mentioned that before you couldn't produce or have if you lost like the records in Alexandria, where there's a cathedral with a bunch of books that the monks had there to safekeep and copy, and that cathedral went up or whatever, or that monastery went up, it'd be like, ah,
Yeah.
so and so's writings, the only writings. And we have lost many. There's many wonderful writings that it would be so interesting to have. It wouldn't give us something new. It would say, "Hey, did you know the writing that blue is actually purple?" We lost that. No, we're not going to learn it. We're not going to learn anything new per se, but we're going to. It's like finding a lost relative.
Yeah.
Tracing. We're kind of consumed with. Or some are consumed with, I'm consumed in a way, but not, ancestry.com. I'm not slamming them. I understand people's interest or wanting to, there's a lot of reasons for that. But we're really interested to know, oh, who was my great great grandfather? He stole a mule? No, that could have been my great great grandmother. uh, or
The
he
wheel.
invented wetness. No, wetness. Water wasn't wet before then. Um, You know,
No, I don't know that one.
you
That's
like
weird.
look at like you doubt, but I do have records of that. But anyway, so when we lose something like that, we still are living and we still proceed and we still have the next day coming. But we lost an ancestor of understanding, maybe,
Yeah.
or knowing about it and knowing their view. But so before the challenge was the availability. Okay, so maybe if you're an enemy, and this is really not what I was going to talk about, but we could maybe talk about
Oh, this isn't? I thought this is where you were going.
no, but it's okay. But it may lead to where we're going to talk about. I was going to talk about the square root of negative numbers today, but actually I wasn't. But
That one's really easy. You
Yeah.
can't do it.
So if somebody is an enemy against getting the word out, you know, uh, they want to stop the whatever that is, whether it's verbal, oh, so and so is going to come and give a speech about the glories of free markets and capitalism, or whatever, you know. And the enemy of that was saying, "Okay, we need to take him out." Okay, so then, the the what would you say, the vanguard and the warriors of free market and capitalism, they go like, okay, they killed their last guy, so we still need to have guys that speak out, but let's write down our ideas. So then they write down their ideas, right? And so the enemy's like, okay, we need to take that guy out, but we also need to burn their factory, you know, that's producing this information. So then they burn the factory. You'll know where I'm going with this, and burn the factory or the printing area where they burn the where they produce their propaganda. And propaganda isn't always. It's just true propaganda. Let's say if you're a free market capitalist, whatever, and we're not talking about the benefits or negativities of those right now, but I'm just using it as an example.
Okay.
But um, so then you go like, okay, we got to take out their ability to produce the information. So they go and burn the library, or they burn whatever, the distribution center. Well, now it's at such a point that information is
Abundant.
so ubiquitous. Yeah, abundant, ubiquitous, everywhere, accessible. Now, yeah, they're still trying to shut down free speech, or open discussion, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so that's a fight, but it's uh that's a fight I don't think they'll ever win. I think the cat's out of the bag. The information is too readily available. But so all the information is out there. So now the enemy of goodness, or the enemy of will go like, okay, so we're going to still try to take people out, okay, and we're going to still try to affect their distribution centers or whatever. But all this information is so readily available. We need to flood the airways with our information, or mix in our information with their good information to subvert them. And so, and what brings me to that is that I just watched a couple YouTube video clips yesterday, and it's absolutely comic gold, absolutely out of this world. Just like genius met writer met genius actors, produced, and but yet it the rest of where the movie where that came from, and some of the sub messaging, in a sense, whether intentional or not intentional, and I think it is
You
intentional
mean like
in some,
subliminal message?
not sub well, no, if for example, I mean like this. So if you want to subvert male headship, then every person in your show, the strong characters are going to be female, the weak characters or the goofy characters are going to be male, and or always need help, and the savior of the day is always going to be the wife or the girlfriend, or the college professor, or the and it could be vice versa. You don't want to portray so that would be
Right. It would
what I
be
mean by, yeah,
right. It's a themes, certain themes that are portrayed throughout.
that are
Yeah.
it's not the story.
Right.
It's not the story is not the woman being the smartest and the man being stupid. They're doing something else, but that is utilized. That medium is utilized to get that message across slowly, over and over and over again, until we start to think, "Oh, this is normal."
Right.
But and we don't condone a show that would portray women as weak and women as useless or women as you know.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. They get and sometimes the message is even worse. Sometimes swear words, sometimes cursing might be appropriate in a certain case, depending on what it is and all that and all that. But uh, the what we say, the provocative physical content that might be included, or certain phrases, or certain anyway, you know what I'm saying, and people out there know what I'm saying, is that certain lifestyles, certain different things that are just thrown in their face all the time. So, so you have this comedic gold, or it could be a drama show, a really cool drama show, whatever. And if it just didn't have that other stuff in it, this would be like the whole world could enjoy it.
Right.
But you watch it. So anyway, all I'm saying is that now the enemy, he's kind of like throwing up his hands. Okay, info is going to be out there. So we just need to have our info intermix and make sure we have our really cool people out there giving their view.
Hmm.
So
Well, and
so
and
anyway,
even if they don't control all of the content that's out there, intermixing that little bit of leaven, it leavens the whole lump. It infects even the good that's there, many times, um, and that's how they are able to, uh, you know, do propaganda for their side, even now, is through intermixing it, and this is something that has affected the Republican Party uh, hugely, with the supposed moderation on abortion, um, and the other giving into slight tendencies of the opposite side, or focusing on the economic issues versus the moral problems. All that is mixed with the good things that the party brings, or at least at this point the party brings. Um, Small government, or I mean, minimal government. I don't know if that's the right term that to use it,
correct.
but
Yeah, what we would like to say is prudential sized government, right?
limited government. That's what the phrase is. Um,
Logical limited government. Yeah.
and so there's certain principles that are good, but then it's interwoven and intermixed with the bad ideas, and therefore we take the good and the bad at the same time, but garbage in, garbage out. So the garbage is still there, even if the good is also there. Um, and so just a little bit of poison kills you still. And so when that's the tactic that the devil uses very intentionally, is make the bad look like good by attaching good to the actions of the bad person, if that
Yeah,
makes
he
sense.
was. Yeah, he was the head of many corporations and many what do you call professions from the very beginning. One of his corporations was an advertising company, and he was the executive of that. So yeah, he uses advertising, and that's one of his ways of getting to us. And someone might say, well, okay, so you say they're giving propaganda. Do you want but we would have to admit, and we would have to acknowledge, and that's why it points to us. It shows that we are in a conflict. There's no avoiding it. They could say, well, you want to present a patriarchal happy family unit on a TV show and mix it in with a comedy because you want to reinforce what you think is good. And we would have to say, yeah, we would want to do that. Hopefully, it wouldn't be the problem with advertising. Uh, on a side note, or the advertiser, someone works really hard or promotes, let's say, cheese from George's house, cheese produced in George's house, right? Um, and the advertiser is telling everyone how great it is, how tasty it is, how good it is for their body, or whatever. But in his personal life or her personal life, they think George's cheese is the worst thing in the world. But they don't really care. Their job is to present, George's cheese is the best. Uh, that on one level is not very what do you say, virtuous.
Right.
Okay, right. uh and so, but anyway, so if someone wants to present someone that believes in patriarchy and conservatism, let's say, and Christianity and God and goodness and all these things, and they want to present that, it's really the same thing. It's like, present what you live. Otherwise, if you don't present what you're living, then it's hypocrisy, and hypocrisy will poisons the well. And so anyway, my point being, that's a side note, but my point being that there someone could say, well, you want to put propaganda in there, and we'd have to say, yeah, you're right. So then it goes to the step, but your propaganda is wrong and harmful, you know
Yeah.
what we would say.
Well, one
Yeah.
other thing.
Yeah.
Not only that, it's also arbitrary.
What do
And
you mean?
well, this is one of the main themes in Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis is the fact that uh, they removed an objective standard, and therefore everything is convention and arbitrary, and so they're making arbitrary decisions as to what is moral and what is immoral, whereas we are basing our understanding of that on actual historical facts and principles that have been presented by Christ and by God. And so the one issue that I have with propaganda is that they are basing their standards on non-standards, on nothing. Um,
Don't you think the principles that you mentioned in the sources, the historical sources, also, and maybe it goes without saying, you're not saying they're good principles because they're historical and Jesus said them. They're they're good principles because it it correctly reflects reality.
right, they're intrinsically true. It's not, they're
Yeah,
not arbitrary, um, uh, additions, or they're not arbitrary based on nothing.
I
They're
know. I know you think that. I know you think that, and the reason I brought the distinction up is because sometimes the complaints that non-believers or quasi-believers or whatever they go like, oh yeah, okay, you're just learning your stuff from a book or from a guy that was dead a long time ago, or from your priest or from your pastor, or from what this person said, whatever. It's like, well, yes, but it corresponds with reality.
exactly
You know,
right.
you know, when Jesus said 2 + 2 = 4,
Right.
if he needed to teach that somewhere, and we read about that, we go like, oh my gosh, 2 + 2 is 4 because Jesus said it. No, Jesus is just speaking the truth. He's corresponding to reality.
Right, and because it corresponds with reality, it's also good, meaning it's useful. And here's the thing: what is it useful for? It's useful for human flourishing because that's what it's intended to do. Whereas the person that brings up Sorry, what? Were you shaking your head? What
Yeah,
I'm saying?
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, yeah, the person who puts Brondo on the plants, guess what? The plants aren't going to thrive.
Right. Well, and
Right?
that's the issue is, this is actual poison that is being propagated by the devil. It's actual poison, meaning it is actually harmful, and we've seen the harm that it brings. And we've seen the good that objective morality brings, and that's why I have an issue with this propaganda, is because they're trying to influence people to do something that is wrong, bad, not good for society as well, which is not the basis for our morality. Um, and because there are some utilitarians out there, and I don't think you can maintain that unless you believe that there's an objective standard in natural morality. But anyway, the point is just they're making things up and then painting those things as good, and they aren't.
hmm hmm Yeah, absolutely. So, and the thing is, uh, so we said that okay, all this information is ubiquitous; it's everywhere, um, and um, and it's harmful. Uh, it's harmful. It either make it can make us start to act in a non virtuous way, but a self destructive way. But it also can make us not act and remove our action so that we don't respond or act in a virtuous way, you know, or just condone things that we don't, that saying that, well, I'm personally against shooting people, but it's really someone's own choice. No, no, that is a defect by inaction, you know.
Right.
Um, so, but so so all this information is everywhere, inundating us, and someone say, "Well, we can't escape it." You're right. Jesus himself said, you know, "We're in the world, but not of the world." Was that Jesus or was that one of the
No,
apostles?
Jesus said that.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, sometimes when you read so much, you go like, "Gosh, who said that?"
You're right.
Because it's not something new. It's not
Right.
like all of a sudden it's everywhere, truth is everywhere through the scriptures. Um, so it's everywhere and we're in the world. But don't you think I think it's a little bit like our body is capable let's talk on a natural level. Our body is capable of handling uh in through our food intake and liquid intake, our body is capable of handling a certain amount of impurity and purging it, you know? Because there's no perfect steak,
Right.
you know? There's no perfectly nutritious, healthy steak. And the people out there that say, yeah, that's an oxymoron. Steak can't be healthy. It's like, I banish you, not from our show, I banish you from speaking. And, but,
Censor.
center, um, uh, so, um, so kind of like our body has the ability to handle a certain amount of impurity, um, because it's in everything, or a certain amount of, you know, bad chemicals or whatever, and we are fine. The effect is not that great on us. But if we go out and choose to uh, eat food that is, it's from Chernobyl, the Chernobyl cheese factory. Not a good idea. Chernobyl is a place in Russia, Isaiah, that there was a nuclear accident.
Yeah, I know
Eh,
that.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew that because you're looking at me like that's before my time. But
No, I know about it. It's a big
okay,
deal.
so So if there's okay, so if you're buying cheese, knowingly buying cheese from, and I'm not against Chernobyl's cheese factory if they have one, but I'm just saying, use it as an example. Okay, it was built right on the nuclear accident site, and you're buying cheese from there. Maybe eventually the radiation is going to take your life and or cause you to start getting sick, right? Because your body can't handle that. So um, so we know the information's out there. We need to produce good information or good comedy, good whatever, good art, good music, all that kind of stuff. We know the garbage is out there. We have to. It says, "Do not put anything base before your eyes." Scripture says,
Hmm.
and the strict the wrong reading of that, if someone is like, I'm a literalist, and therefore I'm shooting myself because everything in the world is base, and everywhere I look, it's like, no, there's a certain choice that we make, daily choices and things that we choose that uh, we need to do our best, and we'll be fine. But if we have a diet and we let our children have a diet or of a negative culture, constant, it's going to be harder and harder for logic and reason and virtuous strength of character to be temperate and prudent and all those things, and balance out pleasure because with virtue, because pleasure is something given by God, but anything that has been created can be turned into a vice if not used properly. So um so if we don't control that, then it will affect us. It will cause us issues. And
Right.
it'll cause a culture issue, right? It'll
No,
eventually
exactly.
the culture will eventually go like they'll be past treatment. It'll be like, yeah, it's not just the finger that's gangrenous that you can cut off and be okay. The whole body is.
Yeah, and if you let it go unmitigated, then it will poison everything. And that's what we're warning against. There's always going to be sin, even in our own lives, or things that are base that occur.
Hmm.
But then what do we do in response? I think is where depending on what the culture focuses on, that becomes more difficult to know how to deal with it. Or because it's so normal, let's say, in the society, that you don't know how to live otherwise. And that's where it becomes a really big deal, is when you can't recognize reality from non reality. And that's what we want to avoid. Um,
Hmm.
is misperception based on continual perpetual habit in sin or in seeing sin, not necessarily your own personal, but being involved in it in some way.
Hmm.
And so, as for parents out there, it's a really big deal that where your kids go to school. It's a very big deal are who the friends are for your kids. And
Who your
this applies to
who your
everyone,
who your
but
teacher.
right, or who your teacher is. And these principles don't only apply to raising your children, but this is one thing that is a big deal in our current society, is not teaching well and not raising kids well. And I know that there are a lot of parents out there who are really trying their hardest and are having a tough time. But it only gets harder if you give in to small things. But anyway, the point was just to say that we have a lot of people that are not mitigating the risks that are posed to our children when it comes to social media and when it comes to things in general, where they go to school and who their teachers are, and the worldly influences that are around them. It has a big impact, and it will either be beneficial for them in the future, depending on if you have good teachers and good influences, or it will have a very negative and very difficult. It will become very difficult for that child when they get older, and
Mhm.
they'll be in your shoes, and they'll have to make decisions on their own. And so if you don't equip them with the right tools, then they're not going to survive spiritually, and they're going to have a really tough time living in society. And again, a little bit of poison is um, going to have a big effect if it's not mitigated. And yeah, there's going to be impurities and poison in many things that it's a little bit of poison that isn't going to harm you, but are you intentionally seeking it out? Is there a perpetual habit that is occurring? Because when a child goes for school, goes to school, they are being given it over and over and over and over again. If it's a bad school, that's where it's a becomes a big problem. Is when
Mhm.
um it's not being dealt with properly. And for people who sin, which is everyone, um, the way that we react to that is we repent and we seek what is higher. We look for what is higher, and we seek to mitigate our sin, to remove our sin, or to remove it entirely from us. But anyway, I feel like I
Yeah, and
went
if
all over the place, but
no, you're on the same track. So if yeah, so maybe prudentially, a family or parents may decide, uh, okay, my son or daughter has to go to this school. Not has to, but they've decided prudentially that it's the right choice.
right,
But there's some issues, so they got to be vigilant with those issues and deal with those issues along the way. You know, um, and maybe it's impossible to. But the challenge that all of us have is, so the person that is responsible for someone else is in the same bad boat. And so how much can they help the person that they're responsible for to get out of that bad boat? They may want to, but they're really limited because they're in the same boat as that person.
right.
So there's a challenge all the way around. But you know, the bad information is unavoidable. And does it automatically mean that you know, someone is fed a bad diet, or and I'm not a health freak when it comes to food at all, but I do believe in eating healthy. But uh, when we're taking in culturally, what we would say spiritually, intellectually, poisonous things, um, it's going to have an effect. And uh, where was I going with that? There was something I wanted to go on that. Do you have something?
Well,
Maybe it'll come back to me. Go
I
ahead.
do have a thought though. Is um, it's important to know how to maintain the truth while being able to uh, read or see things from the opposing view. And so it's important to
Yeah,
instill.
it inoculates you against seeing the reality. Yeah.
Right. Well, and the thing is, it's really important to have a very good, critical and analytical, uh, you know, tendency in your mind of being able to think critically. Like, here's why this is wrong logically, or here's why this is right logically. And so it's it's important to have that um, analysis, self analysis, or analysis of the information to know, is this good and healthy or is this bad? And sometimes you're able to um, see that there is bad, but not participate in it, even though you're looking, or even though you perceive it. So let me give an example. if I'm reading a book from an atheist perspective, on, let's say, zoology, um, I'm gonna see, oh yeah, that's cool. Zebras have long necks, and they have hooves, and they're related to this animal. But then I read, and they evolved from turkeys 1 billion gazillion years ago, and that's how we got zebras today. I did I just change my animal? Maybe not.
No,
But
no, no, no.
but I'm able to look at that and I'm
It
like, that's a
evolved.
bunch
It
of
evolved to it evolved to another animal. That's okay. No,
yeah,
you
yeah,
said the
that's
same
true.
animal. Yeah.
It could work that way too. But and then I look at that and I'm like, that's a bunch of crap. And I'm able to sift the good things.
But
Yeah,
it's hard work.
yeah, it can be very hard work. And when you're constantly reading that, then it becomes much more uh, likely that you'll accept it. Because it's like, I don't want to just be contrary to everyone and to all the things. And I'm
Right.
going to go to the museum, and am I going to just constantly complain about, well, this age is wrong and this is wrong? Or am I just going to just give it up and give in to the science? And that's a real scenario that happens for some
Mm.
people is
Or 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 you said give into the science. What you're really doing is you're giving into the philosophy, because the science might be good as far as hey, this cell has, these features inside it, and this shows why angels aren't real. Okay, wait a minute.
right.
The science is that is what they're saying about the cell might be very well really good. It's their conclusion or their philosophy that they draw from it that you're rejecting. And that's why, and the only reason I even bring that up, Z, is because I know what you're saying. I know what you
Yeah.
mean. But people hear a believer say science in a negative sense. They're not willing to look through what you really mean when you say that. They think you're just slamming science or reality,
Right.
and you're not.
Right.
You're slamming the philosophy of the scientist or the book writer, their conclusions from perhaps good science that they're doing.
Right. Right. And then
So
they label what isn't science. And that's what I'm saying is the so-called science that is reliable and infallible and can never be questioned. Um, the the real facts of logic and the world are mixed with false assertions of what science shows. And it's interpretation of the science that is my issue. It's not the science itself. It's not the observation itself. It's a philosophy. So that's a good thing to bring up because not everyone is going to understand that when I say trust the science. I mean, I'm just saying that they're telling us to trust something that isn't science, but they're saying it's science. It's
right,
instead it's philosophy, and
yep.
so yeah, that's a really needed clarification there. So yeah, I think that was good bringing that up.
Well, I you kind of went into where I was when I lost my Volkswagen of thought. Um, I kind of you talked about it, and we can't just simply because we're if someone's inundated with bad information or um they can still, it doesn't automatically mean they won't come to the right conclusions. It just makes it harder,
Right. Exactly.
and it does affect but it also makes it easier to come to the wrong conclusions. And so so as we probably will be closing this up pretty soon, coming to a close here.
Yeah.
But so one of the things that I would like to emphasize is that we have a paradoxical position that we need to be in. We need to be very vigilant, but we also need to enjoy life at the same time. What I mean is, I maybe it's just self-explanatory. It's uh we don't have to be afraid, but we have to be vigilant. And we can enjoy things. We can enjoy laughter, time with friends, entertainment, you know. But we have to be vigilant as well, and we have to know that the enemy is always looking for a different tact. If, like in the beginning, if the main goal was to get rid of the spokesman, fine. Okay, that didn't work, so get rid of all the spokespeople and their printing press or their library. Okay, if that didn't work, because now information is all over everywhere, and we can't stop spokespeople, and we can't stop uh, truth being presented, then let's mix in with the truth, or let's be also a part of that medium. And so we have to, I mean, it's common sense to realize that, oh, so, some people will be like, oh, that series or that sitcom, situational comedy, they're not trying to present they're not trying to sell products. It's like, oh, yeah, they are. And if you just took, for example, if you're a sports fan and you like watching NBA, let's say, and why don't, like, during when the playoffs come or the championships come, just get a little notepad, and every time there's a commercial, write down what is being portrayed, who's strong, who's weak, who's shown as foolish, who's shown as wise, um, uh, and just write that down. And after watching that, you'll go like, oh my gosh, every single commercial is either trying to tempt me in my flesh, or trying to present a false idea of relationship, false idea of proper authority, all over and over and over and over again. And so a show that like the NBA, which is going to attract mostly men watching it, you think they would be interested in promoting man, as man is great. Man, the men in the world are great. Well, no, just about every commercial slams men, which is really odd.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's also very smart. Okay, if you want to attack men and make them angry at uh, whatever, then obviously you're not going to. But anyway, it's very devious and very, very, very calculated and very purposeful. Now, the actors or the lighting guy or the video editing dude, he may not be intentionally,
Right.
or she may not be intentionally doing that, but someone is.
Right. Exactly.
And
Exactly. Even if it's
yeah,
not their agenda, somebody's agenda is showing forth. And
because it's
because
too consistent. It
right.
can't be random.
Well, it's also just what you have experienced in life gets seeps into what you do. And so when you are writing a story, the world starts to seep in if that's what you've been consumed by,
Yeah.
even if you don't intend to.
Yeah. Well, and so yeah, and so we're placed in a position that we need to be vigilant, and but we can also have peace and feel secure and not be afraid. We can wrap up, but uh, totally not. You wouldn't believe what I was going to talk about today.
Wait, did we even talk about what you're going to talk about?
No,
Oh, that's funny.
we can record that as another thing. I was going to talk about potentiality and actuality, and how maybe we kind of have, or
Whoa,
and
what?
how that applies to God and how it applies to creatures. That's what I was going to go into.
That wow. Wow, that is way far away. That's like all the way in on Mars. On Mars.
Well, well, I was trying to take some of your be docile and kind of operate according to some of your good idea about letting a conversation flow to where it goes. And so, and it was a decent conversation, I think, today. And and rather than just always bring it back to what I preconceived to have, we can have that discussion on actuality and potentiality in the future.
Well, yeah,
But
that means that we now have two subjects that we can talk about.
yeah,
This one and then another one.
that you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you
So
guys. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say. So yeah,
Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate your time. And we hope you guys have a good week.
and a nice Halloween, 2025, the right kind.
Well, I
There is the right kind.
well, we'll have to talk about that at some point further. So, because I have a lot of thoughts on it. All right.
You don't like Iron Man? I'm just kidding. All right, hey, good conversation, Z. Um, and everyone out there, thank you. More power to you.
Say it
All
right.
right.
Come on.
Godspeed.
Have a good week.